After helping dozens of my friends and family members pick out their smart locks over the last few years, one thing that I realized is that every single person has a different idea of what the perfect smart lock looks like. Some people want every single option, while others are just looking for something simple and cost effective. And quite a few of my friends have said that either they or their wives don't want it to look like they have a smart lock at all. So I bought 10 of the newest and most popular smart locks from Amazon, and we're going to sort them out by their different features, test out how well they work, and hopefully help you choose the perfect smart lock for your exact needs. The least expensive lock that we'll be looking at today is the $79 Wyze lock bolt, which connects via Bluetooth for app control, has a physical keypad with rubberized buttons, and a fingerprint sensor. After that, for $99 is the Geektale keyless entry door lock, which connects to your phone via Bluetooth for app control, has a traditional key, and a low-profile fingerprint reader, allowing it to look very similar to a traditional lock set, at least from the outside. Then for $109 is the Philips Home Access door lock, which again uses Bluetooth for app connectivity, has a touchscreen keypad, fingerprint reader, and has a traditional keyway hidden underneath. After that, for $149 is the Eufy C220 smart lock. And Eufy's got a bunch of different lock options, but the C220 includes built-in Wi-Fi for remote management, a touchscreen keypad, fingerprint reader, and a traditional keyway. Next, for $159 is the Lockly Flex, which uses a Bluetooth app for connectivity and has a low-profile fingerprint reader tucked under a very traditional-looking keyway on the outside, but unfortunately still has a very large interior portion. Then for $169 is the Ultraloq U-Bolt Pro, which they call a 7-in-1 lock, and I'm not positive what those 7 things are, but it does have Bluetooth, Wi-Fi, a physical keypad, a fingerprint reader, geofencing, and a traditional keyway hidden underneath. After that, for $189 is the Aqara U100 Smart Door Lock, which has Bluetooth, a touchscreen keypad, a fingerprint reader, and is the first lock that we've seen so far that has Apple Homekey, which lets you unlock by tapping your iPhone or Apple Watch against the keypad. Jumping up significantly in price and size, next is the $299 Lockly Secure Pro, which has Bluetooth and Wi-Fi connectivity, a touchscreen keypad with Lockly's patented Pin Genie layout, a fingerprint reader, and a traditional keyway. After that, also for $299 is the Schlage Encode Plus Wi-Fi, which, as the name suggests, has both Bluetooth and Wi-Fi connectivity, but also has a touchscreen style keypad, Apple Homekey, and a traditional keyway, but unfortunately no fingerprint reader. And last, for an MSRP of $329 is the most expensive lock that we'll be testing today, and it's also the smallest. The Level Lock Plus actually installs inside of your door and uses Bluetooth and Apple Homekey for smart functionality while maintaining the traditional lock set look both inside and outside to avoid drawing any attention to your smart door lock. First, let's look at the different options for opening your lock to see which one seems the most important to you, starting with the traditional key. If you want to hide a spare key somewhere in your backyard or give one to a neighbor or family member just in case, all the locks except for the Wyze lock bolt have traditional keyways. Most people that I've talked to are reluctant to get rid of their keys since they're generally foolproof in case of a mechanical failure or a complete battery drain. However, from a security standpoint, the traditional keyway is probably the most vulnerable part of any smart lock. For what it's worth though, all the locks except for the Schlage, Level, and Philips include some way to provide emergency power in the event of a complete battery drain, but that still won't help you for a mechanical failure. When it comes to actual smart lock functionality, the options available on these models are fingerprint reading, Apple Homekey, and Pincode unlock. And we're going to start with the easiest to understand, which is fingerprints. The Wyze, Geektale, Philips, Eufy, Lockly Flex, Ultraloq, Aqara, and Lockly Secure all have fingerprint readers that allow for multiple fingerprints to be recognized and associated with a specific user and PIN code. During my testing, all the fingerprint readers worked equally well with dry fingers and were easily able to recognize my fingerprint in multiple positions and in multiple angles. However, I've been using a Lockly fingerprint reader on my front door for the last 2 years, and I know that even the slightest little bit of water on your fingertip can cause a total failure of the fingerprint reader. And I'm not talking about getting stuck in a hurricane wet, I mean more like picking up some mildly damp groceries. I tested all the locks after dipping my finger into a cup of water and wiping off any excess drips, and to my surprise, I found that again, none of the fingerprint readers were any better or worse than the rest, and they all completely failed the wet finger test. So having a second way to unlock your door is definitely preferable. Apple Homekey won't fail like fingerprint reading sometimes does, but it does of course require you to have either your phone or Apple Watch with you to unlock your door. In this lineup, the Aqara U100, Schlage Encode Plus, and Level Lock Plus all include Apple Homekey. In my testing, I found that locking and unlocking using either my phone or Apple Watch worked quickly and flawlessly, and I didn't experience any errors or delays in the physical operation of the door lock. However, the HomeKit integration was quite a bit more finicky, and I found that the Schlage misreported its status more often than not in the HomeKit app, despite showing the correct state in the Schlage app. The level lock also occasionally failed to confirm that it had completed a lock or unlock cycle, and would often get stuck in the locking state for a minute or two before finally updating to its actual state. The Aqara lock, on the other hand, was lightning fast with state updates both from Apple HomeKey unlocks and other state changes like manual, deadbolt, and fingerprint reading. And I've got to be honest, I didn't quite understand how this worked, since the Aqara U100 is a Bluetooth only lock, but I could turn off Bluetooth and Wi-Fi on my phone and still get notifications from the U100. To get to the bottom of this, I reached out to YouTube's HomeKit expert Shane Watley, and he explained that when the lock can't connect to your phone, it uses Bluetooth to connect to the closest HomeKit hub, which in my case is an Apple TV, and then it uses the Apple TV's internet connection to pass that notification onto your phone, which is both awesome and a little bit sketchy since it does that all on its own once you add it to HomeKit. Regardless, based on my testing, between these three locks, the Aqara U100 was easily the best HomeKit and HomeKey integration if that's what you're looking for. The last way to unlock your door is with a pin code. And in this video, the Philips, Eufy, Aqara, Lockly Secure, and Schlage all have touch-style keypads, while the Wyze and Ultraloq have rubberized physical buttons. I would say that in general, keypads and pin codes are the least convenient way to open your smart lock, but they do provide an easy backup, and they're useful for allowing people into your home that don't have fingerprint or HomeKey access. Unfortunately, pin codes can be a little bit confusing, so let's go over the different types of access and how they work, and to do that, we're going to need to divide the locks up into two different groups: Bluetooth only and Wi-Fi connected locks. The Wyze, Philips, and Aqara locks are Bluetooth only locks, so any addition or change of pin codes needs to be done when you are physically close to the lock. And the important thing to know about that is that if you run a rental or an Airbnb, you're going to need to actually be at the property in order to change the pin for your next guest. Conversely, the Eufy, Ultraloq, Lockly Secure, and Schlage are all Wi-Fi enabled. So access management can be done remotely through their apps, and you don't need to be physically next to the lock. No matter what, whether you're managing them via Wi-Fi or Bluetooth, there are generally three different types of access that you can grant. Full access that can lock or unlock at any time of day, restricted access that only works during certain days of the week and certain times, and then limited use codes that expire after a certain number of unlocks. The two least flexible locks when it comes to access types are the Philips Home Access and the Schlage Encode Plus. The Philips actually has no app control over its pin codes, so they need to be added and deleted using the menu system that's embedded in the lock itself. And as a result, there are no advanced options for expiration, time of date, or day of the week. In my opinion, the Schlage's access control is unacceptably bad for how expensive it is. And in the Schlage app, it says that you need to manage users via HomeKit. But HomeKit only allows you to add a new pin, and it doesn't allow for any advanced access control or specific time of day or day of the week access. Aqara is also HomeKit compatible, but it doesn't have any of those limitations, allowing for full control via HomeKey, but also user management in the Aqara app, including temporary user access and time and date control. Like the Aqara, Wyze, Ultraloq, Eufy, and Lockly Secure can also set up user access in their apps, including time of day of the week, and specific code expiration dates. The last option that exists for pin codes is for those Bluetooth-only locks, and that's the option to generate an offline one-time use code. You could use these if you were away from the house and you needed to give someone access to open your front door one time, but you didn't actually want to give them your master code. One-time use passwords are most likely generated using your lock's serial number combined with some sort of hashing algorithm, so you don't have to physically be near the lock to activate them. And the Wyze, Philips, and Aqara locks can all remotely generate these one-time use codes for emergency situations. That covers most of the actual smart lock features, but there's still more to consider, starting with battery life. And the first thing to know about battery life is that it's going to depend heavily on how you use your lock. The biggest drain on the battery will be the actual motorized locking and unlocking of the deadbolt. I swapped out the batteries on each of my locks for a DC power supply to be able to measure the power draw during an unlock cycle. And the results were not super useful in a time graph, but I was able to calculate the total power consumption per unlock in milliwatt seconds. And to understand this graph, basically lower numbers are better. You can see that the Geektale has the lowest power consumption, which is probably due to its ultralight, mostly plastic construction. The Aqara, Wyze, Level, and Philips were all between 900 and 1000 milliwatt seconds, and the Ultraloq and Lockly locks were both significantly greater than that, topping out at 2,773 milliwatt seconds, which is 3 times more than the majority of the other locks. It's also important to understand that these numbers that I listed are the least possible amount of power that they could use, since I took significant care to make sure that none of the lock bolts rubbed against the door jamb when opening. And if your strike plate is misaligned, causing friction on the deadbolt, you can expect double or triple the amount of power drop per unlock cycle, which will significantly lower your overall battery life. On that same note, while auto lock is a great feature that personally gives me a ton of peace of mind, you can often double the time between your battery changes while leaving auto lock on by just remembering to manually lock the door when you come back to the house rather than relying on the motorized locking mechanism. In addition to drawing more power, the Lockly locks were also significantly louder than the other locks, which may or may not be important to you, but here they are from quietest to loudest operation. The other thing that has a huge impact on battery life is the inclusion of Wi-Fi. The reason why Bluetooth locks are much more common is because Bluetooth is a more energy efficient protocol. And while the Bluetooth locks had no measurable idle power consumption, the two locks that have Wi-Fi built in, which are the Eufy and the Schlage, both had to periodically wake up to check in with the router due to that Wi-Fi protocol, which then significantly increases idle battery consumption. The Ultraloq and Lockly are also Wi-Fi enabled, but they use a Bluetooth to Wi-Fi bridge that plugs into a nearby outlet. But I did find that these Bluetooth to Wi-Fi bridges were finicky, and in the case of the Lockly, it often failed to pass commands through properly. Overall though, based on my testing, the Geektale, Aqara, and Wyze locks should have the longest battery life, and the Schlage and Eufy will likely have the shortest. But in anticipation of that, Eufy actually uses 8 AA batteries instead of the standard 4 in the rest of the locks, and Eufy estimates that those 8 batteries will give you 8 months of battery life based on normal usage. The other exception to the rule was the level lock that sacrifices battery capacity for aesthetics and uses a single small CR2 battery inside of the deadbolt, which is definitely a trade-off and will certainly increase the frequency of battery changes since a single CR2's energy capacity is much lower than 4 AA's. Speaking of aesthetics, from the outside, the Geektale, Lockly Flex, and Level Lock are almost indistinguishable from a standard lock set from more than a few feet away. But only the Level Lock looks like a standard lock from the inside, and the Lockly Flex's interior portion is actually the largest that I tested, despite having a small exterior portion. And as far as build quality, the only ones that set off any alarm bells in my head during installation were the Wyze lock, specifically because it had extremely thin bolts connecting the exterior unit to the mounting plate, and the Geektale, which honestly feels like a cheap toy. And after installation, I questioned whether it was going to work at all, so its mostly great performance in my testing was a nice surprise, but it still feels really cheap. And that brings me to another common issue that people have with smart locks, and that's some Hollywood image of a hacker in a hoodie easily opening your connected lock with either a computer or something as simple as a powerful magnet. And so to ease your worries, I bought the most powerful magnet available on Amazon, and I rubbed it all over every lock, and aside from confusing the lock state on the Phillips lock, it had no effect, and it certainly didn't open any of the locks, and as I said earlier, the most vulnerable part of these smart locks is probably their standard keyway, which is easily pickable by anyone with a few tools and access to a YouTube tutorial. So as I said at the beginning of this video, everyone has a different idea of what the perfect smart lock looks like, but after 40 or so hours of testing, I've definitely got some opinions. If you want the best bang for your buck with codes, fingerprints, and a Bluetooth app, the Wyze lock bolt gives you basically all the same functionality of the locks that cost 2 and 3 times as much, and I personally think that the minimalist all black look with the lighted rubberized buttons is actually pretty slick, but your taste may vary. If you're willing to spend a little bit more for a lock that will give you mobile notifications of when your door is unlocked and by whom, the Eufy C220 is awesome and notifications were accurate, reliable, and super fast. The Eufy app is full of useful settings to tweak your lock's options, and although the built-in Wi-Fi is more power hungry than the Bluetooth model, doing away with the bridge leads to a more seamless experience, and Eufy did double the battery capacity to account for the increased power draw. If you're a big Apple user, the Aqara U100 is easily my favorite lock overall, and it uses typical Apple HomeKit magic to give remote notifications and allow for remote unlocking using your Apple TV, HomePod, or other HomeKit hub devices that are already in your house. Compared to the Schlage, which is the other competitor in the Homekey space, the Aqara U100 was quieter, used less power per unlock, has a much better app experience with significantly more access options, and it adds a fingerprint sensor in case you don't have your phone or Apple Watch, or maybe for a young kid who doesn't have a phone or watch at all. And it does that for over $100 less. If you add an Aqara hub like the M2, you can also increase connectivity significantly, allowing it to be added to Google Home, Amazon Echo, and Home Assistant using the brand new Matter protocol. And last, if your number one concern is aesthetics, the Level Lock Plus accomplishes exactly what it set out to do, and it looks exactly like a standard lock set. But for me, the price tag is just a little bit steep. Since it only supports Apple Homekey, it has a much smaller battery capacity than the rest of the locks, and it had some issues with slow updating and misreporting of the lock state in HomeKit. As a reminder, there are no sponsored reviews on this channel, but I do have links down in the description for all the locks in this video. And as always, I appreciate if you use those links, since as an Amazon affiliate, I do earn a small commission on the sale at no cost to you. I'd also like to thank all of my awesome patrons over at Patreon for their continued support of my channel. And starting this month, select Patreon tiers will be eligible to win an item for my videos. So sign up by October 5th to be eligible for this month's giveaway, which is your choice of any of the locks in this video. If you enjoyed this video, don't forget to hit that thumbs up button and consider subscribing. And as always, thanks for watching The Hookup.